Good day, grade 12, and welcome to the Kuier Rapport Matriekklas 2021. You've seen my face before? Well, I am Mr. Damian Magerman, and my focus and my subject is English First Additional Language. And today we will focus on the question 5 in the examination of paper 1. Now I know, question 5 is your last question. It's the question you feel you just want to get done. But because you don't do time management, you tend to not finish the question, you leave out answers, and you totally just forget. I can tell you this, you are supposed to get at least 15 to 20 out of 20 for this question, because it's not difficult. It has to do with skills. It has to do with remembering how to apply those skills in the examination, right? So I'm going to just basically briefly mention certain of the questions which are asked in question 5, and then I'm going to focus on the verb tenses as well as direct, indirect speech. Sound familiar? Because direct and indirect speech counts 3 or 4 marks which you throw away. And I'm sure you've been throwing it away since you started school. And sometimes we leave it open. And that boggles my mind that you do that. But it's because we don't know how to apply the skill. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so how to answer question 5? You need to read. Reading is important. Know your skills. Know how to apply them. Okay, so we'll start. Basic errors are asked to you. I'm sure you've seen this before. And you are given 4 errors. Now in the previous video that I've done, and you can also refer to that, you will see that these errors are spelling errors, concord errors, punctuation errors. Now why are you complicating life? Why are you complicating life? Because if I practice these questions from past papers, I'm supposed to pass. I'm supposed to get 4 out of 4, but I don't, because basics I don't pay attention to. Let me show you quickly. That sentence says there, welcome in our island. What is the problem there? What is the error? I can tell you now already. Incorrect use of a preposition. It's welcome to our island. Easy? Easy peasy. But you didn't read it. You thought something else was the error. The next one says, that is a welcome you receive wherever you go. I mean, really? It's so obvious. Receive is spelled wrong. It's about reading. It's about seeing. But you see, I can tell you this. When you get to question 5, you don't read the text before you get to 5.1.1. There's a whole text given to you. You don't read it. You start 5.1.1. And that's the problem. Because if you started reading the text first, you would have identified the errors already. I will refer you to this side as well. It says, and as with all things that are rare, the cost of your coffee are bound to go up. People, read man. Concord error. If I look at the sentence, it looks okay. But it should read, the cost of your coffee is bound to go up. Because your one is. Does that make sense? Are plural. Read, read, read. Right? The next one says, it could impact the 120 million people worldwide whose livelihoods depend on coffee beans. You see, in the examination, you need to read it for yourself in your mind. You cannot read out loud, please, that's an irregularity. But now, if I think of the word livelihoods, I must think to myself, then the spelling is wrong, because I should know it's livelihoods. Incorrect spelling. D, it's dramatically serious. I mean, really, it's obvious. There's no apostrophe, punctuation. Now you see, basics you tend to forget. Basics you tend to leave out. Why? Because time. When the invigilator tells you this is the amount of time left, 10 minutes, then you realize you're only starting with question 5. Manage your time. Okay, we move on. There are questions on parts of speech. The verb, noun, adjective, adverb. I need to know that there are types of nouns. I need to understand what is an adjective, what is an adverb, and not confuse the two. Right? You need to understand exactly what are the parts of speech. And obviously there are more. There's the preposition as well. You need to understand what the parts of speech are. So practice. Then tag question. In the previous lesson I've discussed the tag question. This is it adding on. Because that's what you do with a tag. If I give you a set of keys and you want to add a lanyard, you do so by adding a tag. Does that make sense? So my tag question means that the tag I'm adding is a question. Okay, the example there, Johnny's walking, that's a statement. Johnny's walking, isn't he? Instead of you changing the sentence to a question sentence. Okay? Then there's a negative sentence. We know obviously if it's positive, it happened. Negative, it didn't happen. Okay? Very important. Then there's the active passive voice. Now, what is applicable to the lesson for today, our focus for today is the verb tenses, right? And it basically latches on to active passive voice, and I'm going to explain basically the active passive voice with the verb tense so that you can understand how to change the sentence, right? So you need to go through active passive voice and understand that there's a present, past and future tense. How do I know this? Based on my verb. Okay? So when I get in the examination, I must be able to identify what is the verb. And the verb tells me, as old as I am, which I was taught when I was probably in grade 1 or 2, and I've known since then, a verb is a doing word. It is the action. And then I need to ask myself, who is doing the action? That becomes my subject. Okay? Very important. Right. So when we look at these tenses, we look at an active voice. Okay? So active tells me action, verb. Who's doing it? The subject. Passive, on the other hand, speaks to the receiving of the action. Okay? Now, I alluded to all of these tenses in the previous session. Okay? But now we're going to focus on further into completing every one of them and understanding exactly what it means. Okay? So in the active voice, we find the sentence that says, he finds a clue. Now, very important, that sentence is in the present tense. Why do I know this? Because my verb says finds, which means that it is currently taking place. Present tense. Okay? But this sentence is in the present simple tense. It is an easy sentence. So, present simple. But the same sentence in the present continuous tense says he is finding a clue. Now stop. What do you mean present continuous? The sentence says he is finding a clue. If I think of continuous, it's still happening because it's continuing. That is what I need to ask myself. So it's continuing, so of course, present continuous tense. He is finding a clue. So he's still looking. That's what you need to understand, right? But the present perfect says he has found a clue. He's done. He's perfect, right? That's how I understand simple, continuous, and perfect. Simple, easy sentence. I can understand totally from it quickly. Continuous, it's still happening because it's continuing. Perfect, it is finished. It is done. Okay? Now, you will find in these blocks that the future tense does not have a future continuous tense. Why? If something happens in the future, it cannot continue in the future. That obviously makes no sense. Future tense I cannot tell you that something is going to happen, but it will be continuous in that world we're going to live in the future. It's not going to work. Okay? So we focus quickly on the same sentences, but in the passive voice, in the same tense. Okay? So you will find that we have the object, which was the clue, and we've got the verb. And there's no mention of the subject, but it is accepted just like that. But you would know to add the subject so that you know that you've got a subject, a verb, and object in the active voice. And then in the passive voice, it's the object, the verb, and the subject. Okay, so it is a swapping around of the three. Basically, you will find basically over here the subject, verb, object, active voice, right? But when it's in passive, I must understand it is first the object, the verb, and the subject, right? So I'm going to swap it then around, which means the object then becomes first and the subject becomes last. And then obviously, when I do so, I need to make use of an auxiliary verb in the passive voice. Now, how am I going to do this? Pay attention. Okay, so the sentence from he finds a clue. Simple sentence becomes a clue is found by him. That we know. Simple sentence. The auxiliary verb is applicable in the next one. It says he is finding a clue. A clue is being found. Very important. We know there's a is there and there's a is there. But the being becomes my auxiliary verb. Right? It is being found by him. Right? That's how we know it's in the continuous tense. It's being done at the moment. Pardon. The next one speaks to a clue has been found. Now we know that is perfect. But a clue has been found by him. Once again, that auxiliary verb is used. So it's important that I know my tense so that I can know in which tense it's supposed to be when I change it to a passive voice. Or whether it's going to be changed into active voice. The tense is important, okay? So I must be able to identify, is it present, past, or future? But at the same time, I must identify, is it simple, continuous, or perfect? Very important, okay? Then we move on, and we have present perfect, we have future simple and future perfect, right? Remember what I said? There's no future continuous. The future simple, future perfect sentence tells us, the future simple sentence, tells us he will find a clue. It's going to happen. So he will find it. That's how we identify it is in the future tense. That same sentence says a clue will be found by him. That's basics that we know. You see that when it comes in the simple tense, it's much easier than in perfect or continuous. But now future perfect tells us he will have found a clue. He will have found it. Okay? And I know that doesn't really make sense, eh? A clue will have been found by him. It will have been found because it's in the future tense, right? And it's perfect. And then we have the past tense. The past tense and the present tense are much easier basically than the future one, okay? It says if he found a clue was found by him, we would add, okay? He was finding a clue was being found by him. Continuous tense, was finding. But because I know it's in the past tense, I would continue with was being found. Because being tells me continuous. Right? Then in the perfect tense, past perfect, he had found a clue. A clue had been found by him. Right? So it's important that I look at what is the tense? How do I identify the tense? Through my verb, and automatically I must be able to know that tense, whether it is simple, whether it is continuous, or whether it is perfect. And that grade 12 is how I would be able to, in the examination, if you are asked to change a sentence into any one of those tenses, that you would be able to do so because you are practicing, and that is what is important. Okay? Right. So we will move on to the direct speech. 3 marks we throw away. Right? Direct, indirect, or we know it also as reported speech. Right? So we are told that direct speech uses exact words of the speaker, and it is indicated through the use of inverted commas. Direct speech. So we know direct speech means I am saying the words. Okay? If it should go to indirect reported speech, it means you are telling someone I said so. Right? I'll say it again. Direct speech, I said the words. Indirect reported speech is you are telling someone these are the words I said. Okay, right. Let's look at direct speech in its two parts. Okay, now very important, it tells us there's a clause containing an introductory verb such as said or asked. Okay, now obviously said or asked could also become says or asks, depending on the tense of the sentence. This indicates the speaker. So John said, Mary said, Peter said, etc. Right? We've got that. The introductory verb is always followed by a comma. So they are giving us instructions exactly how it must be done. John said, comma. Right? Then, the next part says, the actual words that are spoken. These are enclosed in quotation marks. We are told how it must be done, right? The first word begins with a capital letter. So it's very important here how we make use of our punctuation. You will find the example at the bottom here. It says, Mary said, it is cold today. Now focus on this. Mary, we know, is the subject. It is the person, okay, the speaker. Said is my verb. So I must identify my tense. So I know said, past tense. Okay, but my instructions over here tells me that there must be a comma. It's there. And I must make use of quotation marks. But the first word itself is a capital letter. So Mary said, it is cold today. Or Mary asked, is it cold today? Right, that should be a question mark on the end. You see, human errors, teachers also make mistakes, hey? Very important that we know this. Right, so I must understand that when it comes to direct speech, this is exactly what takes place. Okay? That is what Mary said or asked. Now, the introductory verb usually comes before the words that are spoken. This now has to do with the format. Right? So we find the supporter shouted. Very important, there's the introductory verb. Right? We've got it. But here it says the spoken word sometimes comes first. Listen to what I'm saying. Here we know it is first. Here it says sometimes comes first. The spoken words will then be followed by a comma, exclamation, or a quotation mark, but never full stop. Pay attention. There is shouted. Introductory verb first. Here's spoken words first. See this. How long until halftime? Asked an excited spectator. So, your introductory verb you had there, which is shouted, which was first, has now grade 12 been placed last. The person who asked it was placed last. So that has to do with the format of the direct speech. So it isn't necessarily just that the speaker will be first. And it is important that you know this. Okay? The next one says, I'm so sorry, this is the last match of the season. Right? These are the spoken words of the person, sighed the school boy. Where's my verb? Last. Okay? Understand it's not just in one form. Right? And then it can also be placed in the middle of the sentence. Right? This will split the sentence into two parts. Very important. The second part is called the follow-on sentence. The follow-on sentence will not begin with a capital letter. That's very important. It won't begin with a capital letter because it becomes one sentence. So, you will find that you guys are hopeless. Shouted the captain. So, he shouted this first part. These were the spoken words. Then came the verb. And he continued and said, and are going to cost us the trophy. Very important. You are going to cost us the trophy. So automatically, I must understand this way. I've given you three forms. Either the speaker and the introductory verb is first, or the verb is placed last with the speaker when it says asked, right, after the said words, or it can be placed in the center. Okay? So it is how the question paper is obviously set up and where it is placed, or where you place it once you respond in the examination. Okay. Now, indirect or reported speech. Many changes occur here when you go from direct to indirect speech. Okay. Look at this. we must remove the inverted commas, question marks, exclamation marks, and the capital letters. Now, I identify this as follows. I need to tell myself, I need to take away certain things. So in my mind, I create this idea. I must take away, right? I'm going to from direct to indirect speech. So, I remove. What do I remove? A P. What's the P? Punctuation. So the sentence, Mary asked, where have I left my keys? I must take away. Right? So I'm taking away punctuation marks. It needs to come away. The second one is pronouns. Right? Also a P. So I know in my mind, I must take away the pronoun. Now automatically, before I continue on to pronouns, because you will find that under each I have different sentences, right? If the sentence here is mother asked where have I left my keys? Here it is mother asked where she had left her keys, because it is in the reported speech. Very important, it is in the reported speech, right? Where she had left her keys. So you will find punctuation was removed, and all the other steps we're going to focus on now will speak to exactly that to get to this answer. Okay, pronouns change to ensure that the sentence retains its meaning. Now let me just use this. I became she. That's obvious. The pronoun changed. Okay, so I know and identify that the next P, I'm changing the pronoun. But it must retain, like it says there, its meaning. Right? Here's an example. Shahida said, my family and I are going to the flea market today. When that sentence of Shahida was changed, it became Shahida said that she and her family would be going to the flea market that day. Very important that we know that she, right? So I've changed now. Firstly, I've removed punctuation. Secondly, I've changed pronoun. Okay. Thirdly, basically both of this becomes thirdly. Okay. Depending on the verb, very important. The verb is going to indicate to me whether it becomes adding the word that or whether it becomes a question word. Pay attention. Okay, so the introductory verb we understand automatically is the word said or says. We would add the word that, right? Here it says insert the word that to line the introductory verb to the spoken word. For example, here we have said, says, stated, declared, exclaimed, or complained. So it would add the word that. Very important. I must know that. Okay. Annabelle says, I love the sound, smells, and vibe of the flea market. So in response, Annabelle says that, very important, that. Now, tip I give to you. You see that comma? You are taught to remove it. So in your mind, my tip to you, replace it with the word that. Before you get to the rest of the sentence, if you know that the sentence goes from direct to indirect speech, you are going to, you know in your mind, you need to write these words again. Annabelle says, because there it is. But when you have to take away that comma, just know, comma must be removed, I must add the word that. Whether this verb is says or said, doesn't matter the tense, it will always be that. Okay? So that is what is important when it is the verb said or says or the rest. Okay? But when it's a question word, you have to insert the words if or whether after questions using verbs. For example, asked, inquired, questioned. You see the difference here now? There we spoke of said or says. Here we speak to asked, inquired, or questioned. Okay? Asked or asks. Very important. So here an example says, the children inquired of their fun rides at this flea market. Same thing that I mentioned there. Here I'm going to change them. The children, hi, my apologies, grade 12. Can you believe it? I made another mistake. The sentence should be the children inquired if or whether. You see what happens when you don't proofread your work? Then we make mistakes. And it can have a great impact on those marks. because I made a mistake on here, but I can fix it knowing it was my mistake and what must go in there. What's going to happen if you do the same thing and you lose out marks? Okay, so don't be so stupid like me. Okay, so the children inquired. My verb stays the same. Now I need to add. Remember, for the word said or says, there I would add that. Here I need to add if or whether. Right? So the children inquired if there were fun rides at that flea market. Right? Or the children inquired whether there were fun rides at the flea market. You see the difference between the two, and that is important. That you understand the difference between when it says, or whether it is asked or asked. Okay, now we move on. Tenses. I've been saying this the whole time. The tense is important. When you change the tense, it must remain the same. Right? The tense must remain the same. Don't lose out on the tense. Right, so first part says there, if the introductory verb is in the present tense, report the speech as if it has just been said. So, John says, I am feeling dizzy today. Right? But now obviously I've removed that, and then I focus there on the verb. Right? And now I have to focus on the tense. So PPT, PPVT, I need to remember. Right? So let me just write out there. Punctuation, pronoun. Very important. Okay, so Joanne says, I'm feeling dizzy today. When I do all of this, it becomes, Joanne says that she is feeling dizzy today. Are you with me? Present tense. Focus here. If the introductory verb is in the past tense, and what is reported had already been occurred, report the spoken words in the past tense. Focus by putting them one stage back in terms of tense. Just look at this. Joanne said, I am feeling dizzy today. But, grade 12, the verb is said, past tense. It tells us to take it back. So, Joanne said that she was feeling dizzy that day. Or the previous day. Do you see? We take it back because it's in the past tense. But because it's there in the present tense, today will remain today. But if it's in the past tense, it will be taken back. Okay? I hope you understand that part. So, 3 sentences. Let's look quickly. We are going to do this quickly. Right? Let me leave this here. We have a cloud hovering over our heads, said Mario Cerruti. Now, obviously I've explained to you at the beginning, the verb can also be placed last. Right? There it's at the back. So, now I know I'm firstly going to bring Mario to the front. That's the priority here. So Mario comes to the front, right? Mario Cerruti, because Mario is the one who said this, right? So he said. So I identify, very important here, he said so. So I know my verb is in the past tense. And it will remain like that. But because I know my verb is the word said, I need to add the word that. Right? I'm adding the word that there where the apostrophe, the comma would have been if those words were in the front. So I add the word that. So Mario Cerruti said that. Next step, I need to change my pronoun. So I cannot keep it as we. I cannot. So it becomes they. Because they, plural form. Right? Now the sentence says, we have a cloud. But past tense. So Mario Cerruti said that they had. I apologize for my cookies, right? That they had a cloud hovering over their heads. Right, now, focus. There were certain things I needed to do. What did I do? I added the word said. I added the word that based on the word said, and it's in the past tense. And then I had to change my pronouns. The word they as well as the they. Remember there it speaks to we and our. Right. as well as ensuring that the tense, because it's past tense, stays the same. Are you with me? So, I'm awarded the mark for the that. I'm awarded, right? We've got 4 marks. I've changed the pronouns, correct, right? As well as I kept the tense. But I also get another mark because everything here is correct. That is how you need to focus on it. These are applicable. Okay? The next sentence says, rewrite the following sentence in reported speech. Elise said, I used emojis yesterday. Right? So I'm not going to do that on the board because I think it's quite evident from here what you need to do. Right? So this just becomes, Elise said that she used emojis. Now because I know it was obviously yesterday, but said is in the past tense, I must take it back. It becomes, Elise said that she used emojis that day, the previous day. Right? Are you with me? I must stick to my steps. That is what is important. The last one, before I end off, also reported speech. I've never seen such a community spirit, said the tourist. Once again, just like Mario's placed last, the tourist also placed last. But I'm going to put them in the front. So, my sentence becomes, the tourist said, past tense, right? The tourist said that. I now becomes he or she. Remember, because it just speaks of a tourist. So, he or she now, right? My tense, past. The tourist said that he or she had never seen such a community spirit. Basics, why? Punctuation was removed, firstly, from that. I needed to change my pronoun or pronouns. I ensured that whether the verb was either said or says or asked or asks, I must add if or whether or the word that, and then priority there. My tense remained the same. You, grade 12, need to practice using these steps so that you can ensure either 3 or 4 marks, depending on the mark allocation exam, is awarded to you. It's basic steps you need to follow. But if you don't read, you're not going to get these marks. Right? So I wish you all of the best, and I pray that you are going to use these steps that I've just given you. You're going to practice them, and then you get the best marks possible. So all of the best as you prepare for your paper 1 examination. Thank you.